Imagine someone followed you around your house all day and every 15 seconds they tapped you on the shoulder. Not hard, just enough to break whatever thought you were in the middle of. You'd never finish a single thing, and you'd probably lose your mind by lunch. Here's the strange part. That's exactly what's been happening to you, every day for years. Not with a person, with objects. Pause for a second. Without counting carefully, just guess. How many separate objects are currently within arm's reach of you right now? Whatever number came to mind, most of those objects are the ones doing the tapping. Think about the last time you sat down to do one thing, just one, and 40 minutes later you'd checked your phone 4 times, opened a tab you don't remember opening, and started 3 other small tasks without deciding to start any of them. You came back to your original task feeling foggy, a little ashamed, and completely unable to explain where the last 40 minutes went. Most people call that a short attention span. It isn't. Your brain didn't get worse at focusing. It got very, very good at something else. Scanning for the next small hit of novelty, because that's the exact behavior your home has been rewarding, quietly, for years. And by the end of this video, you're going to recognize exactly which part of your own room has been doing the rewarding. Stay until Secret 2 because it's built on the same psychological mechanism slot machines use, and once you see it, you'll never look at your phone's notification light the same way again. Secret 6 is a 5-word phrase said before nearly every tea ceremony for 400 years, and once you understand it, you'll never rush through a task the same way again. And Secret 7, I'll save that one for the end because it isn't really a design tip at all. It's the actual definition of what focus feels like once it stops requiring effort, and it comes from a letter a Zen monk wrote to a swordsman almost 400 years ago. Let's get into it. Try this for 10 seconds. Look at whatever's directly in front of you right now and count how many separate things are asking in some small way to be picked up, checked, or dealt with. A phone, a second screen, a stack of mail, a tab bar. Whatever number you landed on, here's the strange part. None of those things are doing anything to you. They're just sitting there. And yet somehow they're winning a fight for your attention that you never agreed to have. There's a word for the opposite of that kind of environment. Shokunin. A term that gets translated as craftsman, but that flattens something much deeper. A shokunin isn't just someone skilled at a trade. Historically, in Edo period Japan, it described a person who had entered a guild as a child, lived with a master for years, and repeated a single narrow skill. Sharpening one kind of blade, folding one kind of paper, carving one kind of wood, until the skill stopped being something they did and became something they simply were. The workshop around them was built the same way the skill was, stripped down to exactly what that one craft required, nothing borrowed from any other purpose. Here's where the map gets redrawn, and it's the whole reason this video exists. In most Western thinking, focus is treated like a fuel tank. You start the day with a full one, willpower drains it every time you resist a distraction, and by 3 p.m. you're running on fumes, blaming yourself for being bad at focusing. A shokunin's tradition never saw it that way. Focus wasn't a resource you spent. It was the default state you fell into the moment everything competing for your attention had already been removed, on purpose, before you sat down. Stop here for a second and think about the last time focus actually did feel effortless for you. Chances are it wasn't willpower. It was a room that simply wasn't asking you to choose anything else. Keep that in mind because every secret on this list comes back to it. Picture your actual disk right now, not an ideal one. How many objects can you see from where you're sitting without turning your head? Now, of those objects, how many are related to the one task you're supposedly working on? Quick one. Without turning your head, how many rectangles can you count? Screens, papers, boxes, picture frames? Most people land somewhere between 5 and 10 without even trying. Wait, the problem was never that you get distracted easily. It's that your visual field doesn't know the difference between task and everything else in view. Every object your eyes land on gets a small amount of processing, whether you meant to look at it or not, which means a desk with 12 visible objects is quietly asking your brain to process 12 small decisions before it's allowed to focus on the one that matters. For well over 1,000 years, scholars and monks in Japan worked at something called a fuzukue, a low writing desk kept deliberately bare. Heian period court nobles used them for calligraphy and poetry, arranging thought and brushwork in a room with almost nothing else to look at. Zen monks used the same basic design for copying sutras by hand, a practice that could take hours in total silence, one character at a time. The desk held exactly what the task required and nothing else, not because extra objects were forbidden, but because an extra object in the visual field was understood, correctly, as a small tax on attention that hadn't been paid yet. The shift. A cluttered desk was never testing your discipline. It was quietly billing your attention for objects you never chose to think about. That one you can fix by clearing a surface tonight. The next one is harder to catch because it isn't something you can see. It's something you can hear, and it's been quietly training your brain to flinch on command. Here's the object I promised you. Think about the last time your phone buzzed and you didn't check it within about 10 seconds. Can you actually remember one? Pause for a second. Can you hear anything humming right now? A fridge? A fan? A laptop? Now notice something strange. Did you have to search for that sound? Or was it just there, easy to ignore? Wait, it isn't that the notification is important. It's that you have no idea whether it's important, and that uncertainty is the entire mechanism. Every notification arrives on what researchers call a variable reward schedule. You never know if it's something exciting, something boring, or nothing at all. And that unpredictability is precisely what makes slot machines the most attention-capturing devices ever engineered. A machine that paid out every single time you pulled the lever would get boring fast. One that pays out unpredictably keeps you pulling for hours. Your phone runs the identical mechanism, by accident, dozens of times a day, and every check reinforces the pattern a little more. Now picture something almost the opposite, sitting quietly in traditional Japanese gardens for centuries. The shishi-odoshi, a bamboo pipe that slowly fills with water, tips, empties, and strikes a stone with a single, loud clack, on a rhythm you can learn and predict within a few cycles. It's louder than a notification. It interrupts a quiet garden on purpose. But because the rhythm becomes familiar almost immediately, your nervous system stops treating it as a threat to investigate and starts treating it as part of the background. Predictable interruption fades. Unpredictable interruption never does. That's not a design accident. That's the entire mechanism working exactly as intended. The shift. It was never your willpower against the phone. It was a fixed, learnable rhythm against a machine specifically built to never give you one. Now, honestly, turning off every notification for good isn't realistic for most people, and Japan doesn't ask for that either. Plenty of homes still keep a phone within reach. The default that matters is smaller than that, and it leads somewhere you wouldn't expect. The actual light in the room you're sitting in. Look up for a second. Where is the light in the room actually coming from? And how much of the room does it cover? For most people working indoors, the honest answer is everywhere, evenly, all at once. One overhead fixture doing the job of illuminating an entire room with no particular point of focus at all. Look to your left for a second. What's the brightest object you can see? Now look right. Was it obvious both times? Or did your eyes have to search a little? Wait. The problem isn't that the room is too bright. It's that uniform brightness gives your eyes no reason to settle anywhere in particular, so they don't. There's real research behind why that matters, not just an old design essay. Attention, scientists draw a line between directed attention, the effortful kind you use to force yourself to focus, and involuntary attention, the kind that gets pulled automatically toward whatever's brightest, largest, or most different from its surroundings, without you deciding anything. A room lit perfectly evenly gives your involuntary attention no clear target, so it keeps sampling the whole room instead of settling anywhere. This is also the core idea behind attention restoration theory. Forcing directed attention all day is what leaves you drained by evening, and the brain recovers faster in conditions that let involuntary attention rest on something clear instead of hunting. Close one eye for a second. Notice how much your depth perception just narrowed. Light can do something similar on purpose. Narrow the visual field down to one zone and focus gets easier, not harder, because there's simply less competing for it. This is also why office lighting research keeps landing on the same finding, decades apart. Workers under a single, deliberately brighter task light report less fatigue and better sustained attention than workers under flat, uniform overhead lighting, because visual contrast, one bright zone against a dimmer surround, is one of the strongest, most primitive cues the eye uses to decide where to look first. In 1933, the novelist Junichiro Tanizaki wrote a now famous essay called In-e Raisan, In Praise of Shadows, arguing that traditional Japanese design didn't fight against dim light, it composed with it. Homes were lit with an andon, a paper-shaded lantern that threw a small, warm, contained pool of light onto exactly one surface, leaving the rest of the room in soft shadow on purpose. Tanizaki wrote about lacquerware and gold leaf that only revealed their real beauty in that kind of low, uneven light, arguing that Western-style uniform brightness flattened things that shadow gave depth to. 400 years of andon design and modern task lighting studies are, it turns out, describing the exact same mechanism from two completely different centuries. The shift. A room lit evenly isn't neutral. It's a room that never once tells your attention where it's allowed to land. Those first three secrets are all things you can see or hear happening to you. The next one is something your brain does to itself, automatically, the second you sit down without a plan. Think about how you actually start work most days. Is there a moment, any moment at all, that separates not working from working? Or do you just open a laptop mid-scroll and expect your brain to catch up? Wait, your brain isn't being lazy in that gap. It's waiting for a cue it never received. A sudden jump from unstructured time straight into deep work asks your mind to do something it was never built to do instantly. And the 15 foggy minutes that follow aren't a discipline failure. They're your brain still hunting for the signal that says the mode has changed. Psychologists call this priming, a specific, repeated physical action that signals to the brain a change of state is about to begin. The same mechanism behind why a pilot's pre-flight checklist works, or why a specific warm-up routine gets an athlete's body ready before the whistle. The cue itself doesn't need to be meaningful, it just needs to be exact and repeated. Try this for 10 seconds right now. Touch your desk, your chair, or the floor beside you. Just touch it, deliberately, once. That single small motion, repeated the same way every time before you start something, is closer to what's coming next than you'd think. Japanese tea ceremony solves this with something called temae, a fixed, precise sequence of physical movements performed before the tea itself is ever touched. Folding the cloth a specific way, warming the bowl, arranging the utensils in an exact, unhurried order. Every motion repeated the same way thousands of times across a lifetime of practice. None of these movements are the point of the ceremony. Their entire function is to move the body through a repeated physical ritual until the mind, following the body's lead, arrives at full presence by the time the tea is actually made. The shift. You don't drop into focus by deciding to. You drop into it by repeating the same small physical sequence often enough that your mind learns to follow your hands. That ritual works even better when it happens in the same place every time. Which brings us to the room itself, and a habit almost every American home has that no traditional workshop would ever allow. Why does it feel so much harder to focus at home than it did in a library or a coffee shop or an old dorm room, even on days when you're just as motivated in both places? Quick question. Answer it silently. Right now, are you sitting in the exact same spot where you tried to focus the last 3 times? Or did you drift somewhere new each time? Picture 2 people with the identical goal. Finish a report by Friday. One works from a rotating cast of locations: bed, couch, kitchen table, whichever chair happens to be free. The other always sits in the same single chair at the same desk for that one task and nowhere else. Ask them a month later which one finds it easier to simply start, and the answer is almost never close. Traditional Japanese craftsmen worked from a kōbō, a dedicated workshop, physically separate from the home, sometimes attached, but always distinct. A shokunin didn't carve in the kitchen and eat in the workshop. The separation wasn't about space efficiency. It was about making sure one room's only job every single day was the one skill practiced inside it, so that walking through that specific door became, itself, part of the cue. There's a real psychological mechanism behind why the person with one fixed spot has it easier. It's called context-dependent learning. Your brain encodes a task together with the physical setting it happened in, not separately from it, which is also why students who study in the same room they'll be tested in tend to recall more than students who prepared somewhere else entirely. A location that's hosted a dozen unrelated activities has a dozen conflicting cues fighting for the same seat, and none of them ever wins clearly enough to trigger anything automatically. Now, honestly, not every home has room for a separate workshop, and even traditional Japanese houses reused rooms for more than one purpose out of necessity. The point was never square footage. It's that even inside a shared room, the smallest consistent boundary, a specific chair, a specific corner, used only for one kind of work, can do a version of the same job. The shift. A room that hosts everything teaches your brain that nothing in particular is supposed to happen there. Secret 6. The phrase "I promised you at the start." 5 words said before nearly every tea ceremony for 400 years. And it might be the single most direct explanation for why focus feels so hard to sustain once you have it. Think about the last real conversation you had when neither person checked a phone once. If you're struggling to remember one, you're not unusual. You're just describing what almost every conversation now looks like by default. Quick one. What's the first thing your eyes landed on when this video started? Take a second. If you can't quite remember, that's the same muscle we're talking about. You were technically watching, but not fully there for it. Wait. The reason presence feels so hard to sustain isn't attention span. It's that almost nothing in modern life is treated as unrepeatable. There will be another meeting, another coffee, another chance to pay attention later. So right now rarely feels urgent enough to earn your full focus. There's a phrase used before Japanese tea ceremonies for roughly 400 years, tracing back to the tradition sen no rikyu shaped in the 16th century. Ichigo ichi-e. One time, one meeting. The idea is severe and simple. This exact gathering, these exact people, this exact moment will never occur again in the entire span of a life, even if the same 2 people share tea again tomorrow. Treat it as unrepeatable, the philosophy insists, because it actually is. Every secret so far, the desk, the notifications, the light, the ritual, the room, has been building toward the same claim, quietly, 5 different times. Your home isn't neutral about your attention. It's either training it toward wandering or training it toward presence. And until this moment, you'd never once been asked which one you were choosing. Stop here. Let that land. Your home isn't neutral about your attention. It's either training it toward wandering or training it toward presence. One secret left, and it isn't a design tip at all. It's the actual answer to the question this whole video has been circling. What does focus feel like once it finally stops requiring effort? Think about the last time you were genuinely absorbed in something. Not gritting your teeth through it, just fully inside it, time passing without your permission. Try to remember what that actually felt like in your body. Notice, right now, whether there's a voice in your head commenting on this video as you watch it, narrating, judging, maybe already thinking about what's next. There probably is one. That voice is the exact opposite of what we're about to describe. Wait, it probably didn't feel like effort at all, that last time you were absorbed. That's not a coincidence, and it isn't luck either. Here's the strange thing about deep focus that researchers keep finding. When people are genuinely absorbed in something, the running internal commentary, that same narrating, judging voice, quiets down noticeably. Psychologists sometimes call this reduced self-monitoring, a measurable drop in the brain's self-referential chatter during real absorption, the mental equivalent of a director finally stepping out of the frame. Zen had another word for the exact same state, almost 400 years earlier. In the early 17th century, a monk named Takuan Soho wrote a letter to a swordsman describing it. Mushin, literally, no mind. It doesn't mean an empty or blank mind. It means a mind so free of self-conscious interference, the second-guessing, the internal narrating, the urge to check something else, that action happens directly, without a middleman getting in the way. A swordsman gripping the sword too hard, thinking too hard about winning, was considered further from mastery, not closer to it, because the gripping itself was proof that too many competing thoughts were still in the room. Mushin wasn't something you forced. It was what remained once every source of friction and distraction had already been removed, long before the moment itself arrived. The shift. You were never supposed to grip focus harder. You were supposed to clear enough friction out of the way that gripping stopped being necessary at all. Before you go, run this on your own space. 30 seconds, right now, wherever you're sitting. Question 1. Is every object in my sightline related to the task in front of me, or am I quietly paying an attention tax for things that have nothing to do with it? The extra tab, the phone face up, the pile beside the keyboard. Almost all of it fails this test the moment you actually look. Question 2. Does this space have one job or 10? The bed that's also an office, the kitchen table that's also a workstation. Each extra job it holds is one more reason your brain never builds a strong, automatic cue for the thing you actually want to happen there. Question 3. Am I treating this next hour like it's replaceable, or like it's the only version of it I'll ever get? Not, will I get this time back, but am I actually here for it? That's the Ichigo Ichie question, and it's the one underneath all 7 secrets. 3 questions, 30 seconds. If a space fails all 3, that's the first one to fix tonight. Look at the space you're in right now. Which of these 7 secrets did you already suspect, and which one did you genuinely not see coming? Tell me the number 1 through 7 in the comments right now. And if this changed how you're going to sit down tomorrow, share it with one person who keeps telling you they just can't focus anymore. It was never their attention span. It was never yours either. See you in the next one.